Hello, everyone. Just giving everyone a minute to get into the room here. All right. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to collaborate and ensure that the donation campaign is as strong as possible. To get started, I just want to reiterate that this meeting is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect now. I also have just a couple of housekeeping notes. We have muted lines and turned off cameras for now, but we encourage you to unmute and turn on your camera during the breakout room discussion and the full group discussion that will follow. While we ask that you mute your mic when you're not speaking, this is a collaborative town hall, and we do hope that you'll join the conversation. With that, I will hand things over to Edna Dumas from HRSA's Division of Transplantation to introduce today's town hall.
Thank you so much, Marley. I want to welcome all of you to the donation campaign town hall. This is a collaborative brainstorming session for donation partners and the organ donation community. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Edna Dumas. I'm with the Division of Transplantation, and I'm here with my colleagues, Lauren Derensberg and Kim Rogers. We're also joined by our awesome Akoya team, Jenna Kavanaugh, Marlee Furman, and Bree Hennessy. Thank you all for making the time to be a part of our donation discussion today. We recognize that everybody has competing priorities, and we are very grateful for your ongoing support. Your willingness to help ensure we have a diverse donor registry that serves everybody in need, no matter their race, ethnic, social, cultural, or economical background, truly makes a difference. We are very excited about our newly expanded and more inclusive campaign, in addition to extending the campaign timeline to be year-round. We've also updated the donation scorecard and recognition levels to be more accessible for business of all sizes across all industries. Next slide, please. During today's webinar, we are going to be featuring small group discussions about the challenges or questions commonly encountered by donation partners. The 3 topics have been selected based on your suggestions during the registration for this webinar. Today, we are going to be discussing equity in the outreach and engagement, strategies for identifying and recurring new workplace partners, and how to use and maximize the donation scorecard for recognition. After brainstorming on these topics in breakout rooms, we will reconvene to share our ideas and suggestions with the entire group. I just can't wait to hear from all of you and your ideas. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Akoya and let them work their magic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Edna. All right, let's go to the next slide here. So before we dive further into our breakout topics, I wanted to briefly address when and how OPOs can get answers to questions that are not the topics of today's town hall. Starting next week, an Akoya team member, either myself or Bree Hennessy, our program support specialist, will be reaching out to every OPO as their personal donation campaign liaison. Either Bree or I will be your point of contact for all questions related to donation. Whether you need help with supporting a partner, or you have a question about the scorecard, or just need some general guidance, your donation liaison is the person to contact. We will be sharing our direct emails and phone numbers so that you can quickly and easily reach us. When we reach out, we will also be verifying contact information and primary contacts at each OPO, and extending the opportunity for a coaching call or to discuss inquiries over email. If you have general campaign questions today, please email donation@hrsa.gov, or feel free to respond to your donation liaison's email next week. Keep an eye on your inboxes. We'll be in touch. So let's move on to our breakout topics. Room 1, which I will be facilitating, will discuss equity in outreach and engagement. Room 2 will be facilitated by the great Heather Osipowicz of Nevada Donor Network and will focus on strategies for recruiting new partners. And room 3 will be facilitated by the excellent Karen Branchella from Gift of Life and will focus on how to maximize the scorecard activities to earn recognition. Thank you so much to Heather and Karen for serving as moderators today. We will be sorting you into breakout rooms momentarily. You'll be sorted randomly. Breakout discussions will last 15 minutes, and then we'll bring everyone back to the main meeting room to hear what each breakout room discussed and hopefully learn additional insights from the larger group. Give me just a moment here, and you should be sorted into a breakout room shortly. While the breakout rooms are open, Akoya team member Sarah Chambers will be in the main waiting room to assist anyone who might run into technical issues, needs to be, readmitted to the meeting or anything like that. Breakout rooms will be recorded, so Akoya team members, please be sure to hit record immediately upon joining your breakout room. Let's see. Okay. And then our co-host should join the appropriate breakout room. Please let me know if you have any issues.
Sorry,
Well,
I think I'm sorry. Are we back in the main room now?
We are. Yeah, that was already so fast.
That was unbelievably fast, I must admit.
The fastest 15 minutes I've ever experienced. Do we trust students counting? I don't know. I apologize for that. I wish I could have extended them another 5 minutes at least. But we do have a smaller overall group today. And so I think actually now that we've each sort of kicked off the initial conversation in our breakout rooms, it'll be great to just bring everyone together and we can talk about all 3 of the topics as a full group. So I'll kick it off. So in room 1, we were discussing our equity and outreach and engagement. And so we were discussing what are some of the things that have been done or are being done at OPOs to help diversify the donor registry, and some things that came up were doing some internal training, DEI group, participating in the community of excellence to try and make sure that not only is the donor registry diverse, but the employees at the OPOs that are recruiting and engaging with the populations are diverse as well. We were thinking too, what are some of the different sectors of the workplace sectors that we could approach that would be more likely to give a good opportunity for engaging with older donors or potential donors or donors from different ethnic and racial backgrounds. The hospitality industry came up as one suggestion that people have had success with, and the nice idea or the nice aspect of that is being able to maybe get in at the higher level, and then these are chain hotels, and so multiple locations throughout, getting in on that higher floor and then having the top-down recruitment can be really beneficial. Another suggestion from Kelly Ranum was working with historically Black colleges and universities. We know that we've talked internally before about how higher education in general can be just a great opportunity for recruitment for the campaign. So specifically making sure to include historically Black colleges and universities is another great opportunity for maximizing equity. Local fire departments and EMTs also came up. Did anyone in the broader group have other thoughts about what sectors or industries would be good to consider for making sure that we have a diverse donor registry?
Hi, so this is Erica, and I am from the Varsity OPO here in Wisconsin. I'm also part of the Latino work group in AMAT, and one of the common things that we found in doing outreach education for Latinos is through the consulates. Specifically for my area, it's the Mexican consulate. So that's actually on my list, on my goals to do this year, is to get them to be part of this donation campaign. As you know, I've already established a relationship with our consulate here, and so just kind of bringing them in, saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this every year, so let's just get you guys on board and be part of this year round."
I love that. Can you speak just a little bit more to how you were able to build that relationship?
Yeah. For at least for the Mexican consulates, they have what are called ventanillas, which are like specific departments. And within those departments, they try to do outreach. So they'll have an education ventanilla, all focused on education, on schools around the area, scholarships. And then they also have a financial one where, you know, they'll talk to people about loans, home mortgage, all that stuff. And the way that I got in is through the health part of it. And so at least for mine, they have a specific person that works at the Mexican consulate that does all the health outreach. And so they do want to partner with organizations that provide social services, specifically organizations that are able to provide services in Spanish. And so that's kind of how I got in, because we are, you know, we're doing education around organ and tissue donation and health education in general. I was able to partner with them. And so they've let me go and table at the consulate. They also have Facebook podcasts that I've been a part of. And so that's the that's the connection there if anyone is trying to find a way in.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, I think, you know, we often hear like, oh, connect with these people, but then, you know, that's easier to say than to do, right? You know, what was the door in? How'd you get your foot in the door? So that was super helpful. Thank you. Another thing that we were talking about in our group was some of the barriers that are faced, you know, and one of the things that came up was finding distrust of healthcare and hospitals in general among some of these underrepresented communities that have historically been exploited. And so trying to rebuild that trust is, you know, sort of the necessary foundation to be able to involve them in the campaign. Did anyone from the broader group have any thoughts or contributions that they wanted to share on that train of thought, as well as other sectors that you would recommend?
Marley, this is Jenna. I was just thinking while you were talking about community groups or faith-based.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about the trust, maybe going to the groups where they already have trust, where they feel comfortable, and talking to those groups about being the ones to present this campaign or these ideas to their members.
That is a great point, Shanna. And actually that aligns really well with what we were discussing at our National Minority Donor Awareness Month webinar, where we had Ilda coming on, and she works, you know, the community outreach in her area. She's on the ground speaking with people. And so she has that community trust already, right? Being able to bring her in and her saying, hey, this donation campaign is saving lives and we need you, can be really powerful.
Sure.
Anyone else before we move to another topic? Make sure we have time for everyone. Okay. Let us move on to room 2.
Yes, hi. So in room 2, we had the opportunity to discuss strategies for identifying and recruiting new workplace partners. And our group was focused primarily on discussing the expansion of the donation campaign to those groups outside of the hospital setting, to be able to maybe what would look different in a campaign partner that is not hospital based versus, or what are some groups that they're already starting to engage. I had 3 outstanding members from the Versity OPO that I know that Erica was just speaking from, that shared about their engagement with the DMVs within their service area, and specifically in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee County, where they see a high diversity of the residents, and also an opportunity to increase donor registration. So they have partnered with the DMV there and are using ways to show them how they would already get those key points on the campaign, you know, and making sure to show them, hey, you're already doing the work to get that national recognition. And so here's what I want to show you, is because it can be overwhelming. We all discussed and acknowledged that it can be overwhelming to someone who's never seen a scorecard before that looks like this, about what needs to be done to get recognition. And so kind of showing them that the partnership is already starting to be fruitful toward the opportunity of getting them that national recognition. And so I appreciate them sharing that experience. And we also did discuss engaging, and I know it sounds like Marley, you all did too, a bit of public safety engagement. So you know, we've had experience with that with our Metropolitan Police Department, sheriff's offices, and state police being enrolled in the campaign. And they're very competitive, and they want to be the best at keeping people safe and also registering new donor heroes. And so we talked about that, getting them engaged. And also there's a lot of crossover events with their public awareness initiatives that they have. And here they call them PIOs, public information officers, where they're officers in uniform that are specifically trained to educate the public on specific initiatives. And I think one of my colleagues, Monica, has talked about that on recent webinars, but it's important to just let them know that we have a joint initiative and we are both engaging toward helping save lives. It just looks a little bit different. And then the final thing that we discussed about out of hospital partners is engaging funeral homes and the opportunity to have them be enrolled. And there's a competitive drive there as well. And similar to hospitals, funeral homes have a corporate kind of structure a lot of times. There are mom and pop shops of funeral homes as well, but a lot of them are corporately structured. And so there's an opportunity to create a sense of competition and an opportunity to kind of join forces for them to see how they complete that narrative of the opportunity of the donor story. But we had a lot of different experience in our group, and that was some of the things we took away, unless any members of the group would like to share additional experience.
Yeah, please, if anyone from the group or outside the group that now after hearing Heather's report would like share. I'm hearing an echo, sorry. It would be great to
I think I have one question for the group, Marley, if I can, because we didn't get a chance to really dive into it with the time. We were similar to group 1 where we ran out of time. How would anyone on this call feel that they would run the campaign differently for a hospital versus an out of hospital or non-hospital community partner? How are you strategizing to do that, or how do you think that might look different?
Great question.
I'll jump in if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm so new to the campaign, so I feel like I'll probably say something stupid, but so Heather, my name is Tamara. I'm with Gift of Hope in the Illinois area, and Last year was my first year partnering with with a hospital for the campaign. The hospital got a lot out of it. I thought it was a great experience. You know, we're energized to do more this year. And one of the things from a hospital perspective engaging in the campaign is I've asked, we have a small work group that's really driving our efforts, and I've asked someone from the trauma department to join it. There's a lot of, they have resources with staff members who do community education from a trauma's perspective. They also have another associate that engages with all their feeder hospitals. And it's about, I would say, 30-ish hospitals. So I'm hoping to really, you know, when we meet with those folks in our first kickoff meeting, to engage them as to two different ways. Like, how can we engage the smaller community hospitals that are feeding this large level 1 trauma and transplant center? And how can we engage the efforts that the hospital is doing out in the community when they're doing, I don't know, car seat things, you know, like at the emergency department, or other, you know, healthcare fairs that they're participating in. That's what I'm hopeful to leverage this year that we really didn't have time last year. You know, we were just, I felt like we barely scratched the surface. And I would be so grateful if anyone else has already done any of those tactics, and if it worked for them or they have any good advice, I would be ever so grateful.
Yeah, please, anyone who has experience with any of this, we'd love to hear your experience, what your experience has been.
Another thing too is I'm wondering, you know, Marley, if we could maybe, if anyone on the call has had these experiences, maybe you feel you don't have the time to get into it right now, but you could email us, because or we could even ask like the larger group, those who might not be on with us right now, you know, who has experience with this. I know there are so many out there across the country who have all these different experiences. Maybe we could somehow get like a matchmaking system where we could match people up.
Truly though, because we've been doing a little bit of that on coaching calls informally,
Yep.
but it would be great to have a repository of, you know, what do you have experience
Right.
with? We'll match you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please, you know, don't hesitate to reach out. And like I said, we'll be in touch with every OPO, so that can be a great opportunity to share that with us. Heather, was there anything else from your group that you wanted to pose to the full group here?
I don't, but I think two of our attendees have kind of come off mute, gone off mute. So I wanted to see if either Megan, and then I'm sorry, is it Zahner? Am I saying that wrong? Zahner or Zahner? I saw both of you kind of come off mute, go back on mute. So I want to give you an opportunity to speak.
Zahner is also from Varsity. Zahner, you can go
Zahner.
first.
Okay, great.
Actually, I was, Megan, feel free to, well, so there was, with hospital engagement, it's not so much tips, but I sometimes really like, we have donor council meetings. And so this year I've set it up where they know, so instead of doing a once a month donor council meeting or donation champion meeting, we are doing a lot of them right before National Donate Life Month. So we're doing them weekly for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then the rest of the year, we're doing them quarterly. So I've kind of put together like a kind of strategizing my timing to plan out the year. So, you know, right after the holidays, we're hitting the ground running. And I guess they're bi-weekly. They're every 2 weeks starting in February for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, or 3 or 4 times in a row, I should say. Okay. So I'm just trying to strategize with hospitals, like their calendar and their plan, and through the donor council meetings. But I also feel like I would love to do, when you mentioned like partnering up, I'd love to do a mock like explanation of the scorecard, a mock explanation of the campaign, a mock explanation. Like, even if, like, I know in these Zoom meetings, you can pair us up and, like, you know, having us actually, like, get our wording down, because it's sometimes a lot for me to wrap my head
That's a wonderful suggestion, Zainer. Thank you. We will
Yeah.
look into.
And I can actually jump off that, Zainer, because part of what I was going to say actually had to do with that. And I know you touched on it, Heather, we touched on it in our group too, that it is very overwhelming for people who are not familiar. You know, like once you've got it, you've got it. And you're like, oh, okay, this is easy. Like we just go through the motions and make it happen, right? But getting there is quite a challenge. So, and, you know, for us in OPOs and tissue banks and, you know, so on and so forth, like we're passionate about it. And so we'll put in the work to get the understanding. But if you go to kind of like a, you know, blind recruitment to a company and try to like throw this at them, it is hard to kind of get it into like an elevator speech, if you will. So I do agree with Zainer that that would be super valuable. And then I also wanted to kind of hit on the fact, well, one, during the group, it was at the very end, so we didn't really get to talk about it, but one advantage that Versity has is that we are also a blood bank and donation center. And so we are able to partner with our blood services departments because they have community connections all over the place. That's how they do their blood drives, right? And so we're working on kind of integrating that so that we can kind of piggyback on that rather than redoing that work. Again, much easier for us because it's all in-house, but I don't think that it would be anything that would be impossible for other OPOs to be able to just kind of connect with your other health organizations like that, to be able to say, hey, like, can you just throw an extra question on your thing when you're coordinating, like that we can have a table there or something like that, you know? Because once you make those connections, I think that's the hardest part. And then you can start kind of really integrating in. And then the other part that I wanted to just bring to the table too is, I forgot to mention it in our group, but it just came to me, is one of the strategies that I have used to try to simplify things for people is I will schedule like a kickoff meeting with them, maybe like a 30-minute or something. And I come prepared with this like sheet that I've put together that essentially is like a mock list of things they could do, like low-hanging fruit, right? And so it's already mapped out and it says January do this, February do this, and it's maybe 1 or 2 things each month that aren't a big lift. And I can say, look, this is all you have to do and you've already reached silver, you know, and then let's talk about what else you can add to the plate. And then we literally go through and like it's like an Excel document. So it'll literally just start adding it up as we're sitting there talking about it, plugging things in. And it just makes it a lot easier for people to understand that, okay, wait, this is doable. And I like don't need to completely reimagine our goals for this year to make this happen or something like that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Great points, Megan.
Yeah, Megan, and that kind of in the scorecard group, you know, when you talk about being overwhelming, I think the scorecard can be overwhelming. So I love that idea of either just maybe don't even show them the scorecard right away, pull some activities off of it, some of those low hanging fruit. Or I was thinking, you know, for some of these outside groups that aren't health related, maybe start by just saying, just going through and saying, what are some things that you already have? Do you have an internal newsletter? You have a website? Do you do like an internal social media? Just kind of ask them some questions and then you kind of know where they are, right? So if they do an internal newsletter, oh, well, great. You can just take this image from, you know, the toolkit and put it in your newsletter and you've gotten points. So just maybe doing kind of a survey of what do you have based on the scorecard? Like some bigger companies might have departments and they may have done departmental challenges for fun before. Like maybe they did Christmas door decorating. Okay, well, you could absolutely do something like that. Maybe just seeing what they have in inventory and then kind of adapting it for that.
Love that. Thanks, Jenna. I think that's a natural lead-in actually to Karen's group. Karen, would you like to talk a little bit more about what was going on in the scorecard group?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So it turned out that most, if not all of us in our group were from an OPO.
Okay.
So we were able to identify and review some of the activities that were on the scorecard. We had a little bit of a discussion about one of the materials that's provided via link on the scorecard, the Take 5, because it sounds like it's a lot of basically geared towards, you know, take 5 minutes and hear about donation. And what's nice is that you included, you know, a plethora of resources. that not just the hospitals, but any organization can easily, incorporate into either an online newsletter, something that gets disseminated throughout the hospital or throughout the organization. So we really didn't have too much experience working with organizations. So this has been a beneficial conversation with the previous two work groups. And that's where we started to get into about the unfamiliarity HRSA has outside of the healthcare environment, and how do we get that word out to these different organizations and get them more involved? And that's when we ran out of time in our group.
There's never enough time.
Well, and I would love to, Beth Hinesley had started talking, got cut off at the end, but there were two things that Beth talked about that I think is kind of interesting. And Karen addressed it just now, this idea that what does HRSA mean to workplaces? Whereas in the hospital campaign, it already had a connection and a meaning. So getting recognition from the HHS is meaningful to hospitals because they're already tied in with HHS in so many other ways. What I thought, Beth, while you were talking, and I'd love to hear what other people think about it, is, maybe you need to not lead with the HRSA recognition, but maybe it is more meaningful for some workplaces in your service areas to have recognition from the OPO, or, just recognition from other workplaces that may have done this. So maybe recognition from the hospital who does the hospital campaign and is very involved would be more meaningful for a small business in the area. How can you kind of like twist it around so that, they'll be on this list, this national list of workplaces for HRSA that did this, but can you twist it to, hey, maybe it's more important to them to know that they'll now be part of this local group, including the big hospital down the street that works toward this. And, maybe you could create some type of special recognition between your partners or from your OPO to that business, which might even be more meaningful than the HRSA national recognition.
Absolutely. Sorry, I cut someone off.
That's okay. Megan Zagris is amazing and runs a HRSA award ceremony. And this year, community partners and hospitals came together, and it was awesome. It was really great.
That sounds great.
I was thinking too, I almost wonder if, for certain hospitals and workplaces, if it would make sense to almost pair a workplace with a hospital mentor who's experienced, and not that it needs to be a super labor intensive thing, but just say, here's how we did it. Like, here's what their scorecard looked like, here's how they were able to achieve recognition, and what it might look, the OPO can help them visualize what that might look like in the workplace. But I wonder if some sort of, and that's leading towards that recognition portion that you were mentioning, Jenna, that, we partnered with them and now we're getting recognized by the hospital, for the great work we did. Could be really motivating. Were there other comments on the scorecard? Activities. Anyone?
And I know I've spoken a lot, but thanks.
Please do.
I don't know if for next year, with the point system, to maybe have like 3 different types of points instead of like a 15, a 25, a 50, 100, 75, things like that. So like the things that you're like, yeah, we really want hospitals to do this one, make those like, maybe there's a couple of them that are like 100, and then a couple more that are 75, and then most of them are like 20 or 30. So it's like, so having like 3 different tiered, or like 3 different amounts instead of a whole bunch of different amounts. Because I do notice that some of our hospitals will really focus an effort on like a donation table or signage or something, and they're really excited about it, and they're like, oh, that's only 10 points. And so, maybe just having like, if you do 20 things or if you do 10 things, you have reached this level. So if you make everything like 20 points or 30 points, they know if they do 10 30-point things and they've reached a certain level. Or like just like kind of thinking as a group, how many different things do we hope that they do realistically to meet a certain level, and then make the points divided by that. Like, I don't know how to explain it, besides make the points a little more uniform with some really outstanding, like really high ones.
So you could almost say like, do 2 from this bucket and 1 from this bucket and 1 from this, and you can reach the, like, is that what you're thinking? Almost to
Yeah, or like
make
if
it
you
like
do,
much
if you,
easier for them to map. Okay.
yeah, like if you do
Yeah.
10 of these, then you get it. If you
Right.
do 10 of these plus 2 of these, you then get this level. Yeah, just so
Right.
it's much easier to conceptualize and
Right.
do the math
Right.
and get more activities done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And we're always trying to refine the scorecard, based on, we've got a new one this year. We're very curious to see how people feel about it, but I think that's a great dinner. And we've talked in the past too about, mapping out these pathways to recognition. And, obviously we can provide, a separate resource, but if we did that, the scorecard itself would become the map to pathway to recognition. So yeah, great idea.
Yeah, thanks. I love simplifying. Anything we can do to simplify, right?
Yeah.
It's like small effort, big reward.
Yeah.
Love that.
I had just another, it kind of links to scorecard, because we obviously, organizations get 8 point per registration that they get during the campaign period, right? One challenge that we have faced pretty much every year is figuring out a good way, a easy way, a manageable way to track those registrations per organization. I know that, I don't know how it is for everybody else here. There's the national registry, there's the state registry. We try to push people towards our state registry because it does provide much more specific language and permissions and those types of things. But obviously, we'll also push the national. As long as you're registered, we're happy, right? But being able to kind of really track, what I don't know how many we're getting and where they're coming from. And I don't know if there's plans for that in the future. If maybe there's like, if I don't know if there's coded, I don't know. I don't work on the IT side of things, but maybe like a coded link through organdonor.gov that we can give out per organization or something like that, so that they can make sure that they're using that link every time. And then there's a way to like track that, okay, this hospital had this many registrations during our campaign period. I think, because I know that that's a big challenge for us and our hospitals and our partners every year, is like, well, how do I track it? Is it the honor system? Am I supposed to send you like every time we have an event, and it's very unclear across the board. And so having some type of mechanism like that would be very helpful.
Absolutely. Ethan, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to piggyback on that, because that's the main reason why I actually wanted to join this call, to find out how people were best tracking. I've been working with this within my OPO for the past 5-6 years, and that is our biggest challenge. And so what we are hoping to do, we started October 15th with contacting donatelife.net to try to set up our individual Register Me campaign pages.
Yes.
We have been unsuccessful to date to get any of this done, but we were hoping that would actually help us, track it, because that was the biggest challenge for us every year. Just being able to say, hey, how many did we get? Because no matter how many different types of registration events we had, sometimes they were on paper, sometimes they were on a computer. And then when we moved into COVID times and we couldn't be in front of people, having those individualized links is what we were hoping to make happen. And now it's been almost 2 months since we initiated that process. And we, there's a lot of different components and a lot of different people that kind of go into making this process successful, which is, I don't know if anyone else has been successful in doing a really good job of tracking, because if you have, we would love to hear it. And I would love to bring it back to my team to say, hey, this is what other people have done. With this change that we were hoping to implement sooner, especially since we're doing a year-round kind of or at least a 12-month rolling scorecard versus the traditional campaigns of the past, if anyone does have any, that is something that I think you guys could share in all of your liaison discussions that when you're reaching out, because the other things are pretty self-explanatory for us. Like, do this, you got it. But when it comes down to those little bits and pieces, it also makes it maybe make it easier to say, this is how you can set your goal realistically. Like, is setting a goal of 10 too low versus setting a goal of 25, because each hospital is trying to do a specific number to achieve their different recognition.
We had a hospital that like their goal was like super low, but they went to individual people, it was like 3 or 5 or something. But they were like, we don't know if anybody registered. So they like went to individual coworkers throughout the hospital unit, and 3 people signed up. She's like, we got it, you know. So I don't know, you know, if that's like, you know, kosher. Of course, the whole goal is to get as many as possible, but I don't want people feeling bad for setting a low goal. It's a very rural hospital that I was working with, and it just they didn't know how to measure it, so they took a measurable goal.
Yeah, well, and these are, you know, so many great comments. Wow, thank you, Ethan. And Zainer, you bring up a good point too. I think, you know, the goals are going to vary, of course, depending on the size of the workplace, right? And so these are all things that we're going to be preparing an e-blast that was sort of like a roundup FAQ type of thing. So these are some things that we'll definitely think about and try to push out in that e-blast to help support you. By all means, if anyone on this call, though, has had success with tracking registrations and feels like they've really got a good system, please email us and let us know, and we'd be happy to share that more broadly with the other OPOs, because we know that that's been a recurring challenge and something we're always trying to improve on. We are already at 3 o'clock, so I'm going to have to wrap it up, but this has been a lovely discussion. I'm just going to share my screen again, and then I will hand things over to Edna. 1 second. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Marley, and thank you, everybody. This was definitely a wonderful discussion. I want to take a moment to thank all the participants today in coming to the town hall. We know our best ideas come from working together towards a common goal. Hopefully, this hour of collaboration gave you fresh ideas for campaign success, and most importantly, signing up new organ and tissue donors. On behalf of Lauren, Kim, and myself here at HRSA, I want to extend our sincerest thank you to all of you for your time here today and for your work as donation partners. We wish you a successful campaign here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Edna, and thank you all. We will be in touch shortly via email.